Hello everyone, hello everyone. This is my review of Blade Runner original 1982 theatrical cut. Yes. Spoiler warning. Spoiler warning. Spoiler warning. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment letting me know if you've seen the original theatrical version and what you think about it. This is my review of the original 1982 theatrical cut of Blade Runner, directed by Ridley Scott and co-written by Hampton Fancher and David Webb Peoples. Based on the novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. Blade Runner, the original 1982 theatrical cut, is a visual masterpiece with a satisfying ending. The director's cut of the film, released in 1992, and the final cut, released in 2007, are disappointing films. They don't have a proper ending. They just stop. But the ending of the theatrical version is satisfying and fits well with everything that came before it. You have a feeling of catharsis there that you don't get from the truncated ending of the director's and final cuts. Some people complain that the ending of the theatrical version was, quote, studio imposed, unquote. But even if that's the case, it doesn't feel bad to me. It feels like the official and proper ending of the film. It makes the whole film feel crunchy and substantial. Without it, the film feels like it's missing something. You come out of the experience feeling empty. The original happy ending has Rick escaping with Rachel into a gorgeous mountainous countryside. It, like the rest of the film before it, has some great cinematography. It uses part of 70 hours of extra footage Stanley Kubrick filmed for The Shining, and the narration confirms that Gaff, played by Edward James Olmos, was at Deckard's apartment but decided not to kill Rachel. The narration also tells us that Rachel has a much longer lifespan than most of the replicants. Sure, Rick and Rachel could possibly be hunted down by future Blade Runners, but for the moment they finally have peace and a wondrous escape. It is bright and full of cheery happiness, unlike all of the previous scenes of the film, which took place in a dark and gorgeous world. The ending takes place in a bright and gorgeous world. Remember that Ridley Scott is just one of the authors of the film. The others are Hampton Fancher, David Webb Peoples, and most foundationally Philip K. Dick. And so therefore the directors and final cuts while approved by Ridley Scott, do not have the complete and comprehensive authorial stamp of approval that you would get if Fancher, Peoples, and Philip K. Dick would concur with said cuts. And also, we have no idea if Philip K. Dick would have, in fact, preferred the original film's ending, because even though he had seen parts of the film, including some of the fantastic special effects shots, he died before he saw the completed film. But even if he would have preferred the truncated ending, the original theatrical version with the happy ending is superior than the later versions with the happy ending removed. Ridley Scott said that the happy ending is, quote, improbable, unquote. But I disagree. It's conceivable that Rick and Rachel could have escaped and enjoyed at least some days of peace before being hunted down by another Blade Runner. The ending reflects that potentiality. The sequel addresses some of the above, but I don't want to cover it in this review. While I enjoyed the sequel, but I think the original Blade Runner and the novel exceed the sequel and are superior to it. I also enjoy the narration in the original theatrical version of Blade Runner because it is beautiful and it goes well with the visuals, it complements the visuals well, the beauty, and also because it makes the film feel more like the film noir, which was part of the influence for it, even though Blade Runner is considered a neo-noir film. Blade Runner takes place in a future Earth. Now in 2024, this year, an alternate history because the movie takes place in 2019, a world where there are colonies on other planets, and androids called replicants are used for slave labor on said colonies. In the novel, early replicants were primitive, and it was easy to see them as fake. But now the newest Android models have a Nexus 6 computer for a brain. They are intellectually very hyper advanced, and it is difficult to tell them apart from a real human, apart from the fact that it is said that they have no capacity to feel empathy. This is assessed by skilled android killers called Blade Runners with the Voight-Kampff test to determine if the test subject is an android or replicant or human. But the problem is that some humans lack empathy, and also some robots may have it, blurring the line between what is living and dead. The movie supposes that androids are in fact living, since both Rachel and Roy Batty show empathy in certain parts of the film. And what a beautiful scene and performance by Sean Young, who plays Rachel, when she finds out that she's a replicant. We see her face break out in authentic tears, and the wave of emotion that radiates throughout her face is genuine and makes us feel deeply for her. The premise of the movie is that 6 androids have escaped, murdering 23 people on an off-world colony and traveling to Earth. It is a job of Rick Deckard, Earth-based Blade Runner, bounty hunter of replicants, to identify and kill them before they can cause even more damage to an unsuspecting population. The city of Los Angeles in Blade Runner is one of the most gorgeous settings in any sci-fi film and one of the most gorgeous settings in any movie, period. Pervasive rain, sparkling advertisements, Japanese characters, and manifold neon light playing on rain-beaded windows and windshields of flying cars with thick white steam-like exhaust coming out of manifold vents and vents in the city. There is a heavy East Asian influence, that of modern Japan. Neon signs in Japanese and women painted as geishas appeared in advertisements. This aesthetic has been replicated since to great success in Japanese cyberpunk anime like Akira and Ghost in the Shell, and more recently in CGI and more recent films, but it is done best in Blade Runner because it does not rely on cheesy computer-generated imagery as more recent films do. That being said, there are some impressive cyberpunk video games like Cyberpunk 2077, Cloudpunk, and the upcoming Nivalis, which also use this aesthetic and beautifully also. During the 1980s, a decade when Blade Runner came out, Japan became the number 2 economy in the world after the United States. The Asian influence gives Blade Runner setting a beautiful and alien feeling, even though it is set on Earth. And East Asian dominance is the basis for a lot of the cyberpunk genre's settings. And the neon and Japanese characters are part of the film's aesthetic appeal. The flying cars and modern corporate buildings shaped like ancient religious structures add a sci-fi flair to the visuals. Some may say that the aesthetic of East Asian influenced cities full of advertisements is dated, but when you consider that the second largest economy in the world is now China, with its gorgeous cyberpunk cities of Shanghai, Beijing, and Chongqing, among others, and the 4th largest economy in the world, the second in the 1980s, but the 4th now is Japan, with its resplendent cyberpunk metropolis of Tokyo and Osaka, metropolises of Tokyo and Osaka, the East Asian powerhouse cities are still dominant in the global economy. As far as the sets are concerned, most of them, including the temple-like scene where Deckard does the Voight-Kampff test on Rachel, are spectacular and majestic. But other sets, like the set of Leon's hotel and the set where Holden does the Voight-Kampff test on Leon, are dull and don't match the spectacle of their exteriors. But overall, the sets and visuals are fantastic, majestic, and unique. Since the androids or replicants are only a few years old in the movie, they are implanted with false memories to attempt to stabilize them emotionally. Or as Dr. Tyrell of the Tyrell Corporation says, to quote, control them better, unquote. In the movie version, J.F. Sebastian is a genetic designer, a brilliant genetic designer. In the book, J.R. Isidore, his counterpart, is someone who is mentally impaired and works in a menial position for an artificial animal repair shop. In the book, J.R. Isidore is a lonely, unloved person. You could say he's an incel, involuntary celibate, who is sometimes bullied and is excited when the pretty woman who turns out to be an android moves into his apartment building. The movie version downplays his loneliness a lot, downplays his loneliness a lot, and eliminates the time J.R. Isidore was bullied. I think that's one of the film's few weaknesses, as well as what I mentioned above. The film touches on J.F. Sebastian having Methuselah disease, but it doesn't delve deep into that. Shang Young, when she was younger, was extremely beautiful, and she gives an exquisite performance. She reminds me of a young Ariana Grande. It's a major shame that they did not include Young in the sequel. It would have been wonderful to see her again. And the ending of the original theatrical cut suggests that she may have a longer lifespan, so it would have been logical to see her again, yes, and plausible and probable also, yes. The androids or replicants in the Blade Runner movie are have extremely short lifespans as a safety precaution, only a few years. Roy Batty, the leader of the rogue group of replicants, wants her lifespans extended, so he goes to Dr. Tyrell, the scientist and leader of the corporation who created them, to try to get fixed. Just to give a brief idea of the android lifespans, Roy Batty, combat model and leader of the 6 replicants, is only 3 years old at the time of the story and towards the end of his 4-year lifespan. Tyrell says, quote, "The light that burns twice as bright burns half as long," unquote. Had Tyrell given the replicants a longer lifespan with their learning and their advanced intelligence, who knows what they would be capable of? Vast feats of creativity, science, and industry. But humanity is afraid to give them that potential power because who knows what deadly intelligence they might develop to kill people also, and therefore the short lifespans. Yes, I know that Roy Batty kills Dr. Tyrell, and this is proof that the replicants, at least combat model replicants like him, should be eliminated for the safety of the human race. But the fact that Roy Batty saves Deckard at the end of the movie is the ultimate Voight-Kampff test. It shows that replicants or androids, at least in the world of Blade Runner, are capable of developing empathy, and more so than some humans. Therefore, since they have empathic feelings and are also intelligent, they are worthy of having human rights and should be considered people. Rachel also saves Deckard's life earlier in the film. She is probably a better example than Roy of why replicants are worthy of having rights to protect them, since she's docile and commits no harm to anyone. That being said, Roy Batty's Tears in the Rain speech at the end of the film is a masterpiece. That speech, combined with the visuals of the gray and the heavy rain in the cinematography and Vangelis's brilliant music, make it great. Both screenwriter David Webb Peoples and Rutger Hauer are responsible for the speech. Rutger Hauer cut out portions of the original speech which sounded too technical and also added a portion to it, making it sound more poetic overall. Earlier in the film, Hauer also reads a modified poem by William Blake about the fires of Orc. One of the most powerful things in Blade Runner that makes us empathize a lot with Deckard's character is that Harrison Ford gets beat up a lot, like in the Indiana Jones movies, and that makes us feel for his character more. Harrison Ford plays being scared and getting beat up more convincingly than any other actor I've seen. It's an amazing performance and a tour de force performance by Harrison Ford as usual, one of my favorite actors, yes. Overall, Blade Runner is a visual and narrative masterpiece. It has some of the most impressive visuals in all of science fiction, and it without even leaving our planet, within Earth, yes. And in the history of film, also, some of the most impressive visuals in the history of film. It has some great performances by Shang Young as Rachel, Rutger Hauer as Roy Batty, Harrison Ford as Rick Deckard, and others. The music in the film by Vangelis is majestic, one of the best soundtracks ever. And I play it sometimes as I write also. Yes, and the love theme by Vangelis is beautiful, and also Rachel's theme is beautiful. And One More Kiss, Dear, the classic song that made it sound like an old 1930s song or 1940s song, sounds very beautiful. It's by Vangelis also. The special effects are great. The on-screen computer effects on the dashboards and the vehicles, etc., remind me of the on-screen computer effects of the original Star Wars. They don't intrude. But of course, most of the special effects, aside from what we see on the vehicle screens, are not generated by computer. There need to be more films to take this approach, because if it is done well as Ridley Scott and his team do it, they look much better than computer effects. Yes, sometimes computer effects can be done great, as in The Life of Pi or the Avatar movies, but most modern movies have an over-reliance on CG, computer-generated imagery, because it is cheaper to create effects on computer than to do special effects. It is cheaper to create special effects on computer than to do special effects in the way they were done in the 1980s. The film is thought-provoking, but the novel version goes deeper into some of the themes which the film version just glances upon. I recommend the novel if you like the movie. I love both the movie and the novel so far, which I am over halfway finished with, and I'm reading for the first time. Up next, I hope to review either the Cure movie, either the Ghost in the Shell film, or Final Fantasy The Spirits Within, or something else. If you like science fiction or Blade Runner, please consider buying my science fiction novels Phantom Zero and The Swordsman and the Philosopher, now available on Amazon in physical versions, and Capitan Quito and the Barber's Daughter, which are both available on Amazon exclusively as digital editions. Phantom Zero is about an unloved incel who travels the universe looking for a woman who will love him but fails, and pilots a giant monster in exchange for access to a beautiful woman. Yes, that's Phantom Zero. It's available on Amazon. Please get it now if you like Blade Runner, if you like sci-fi. Yes. The Swordsman and the Philosopher is a buddy story about an unlikely duo, an extremely handsome soldier who has had disfiguring plastic surgery on himself, and a chubby incel who takes advantage of the first man's ugliness to try to get a woman for himself by contrasting himself with the ugly soldier. But meanwhile, or with an unattractive or disfigured soldier. But meanwhile, an assassin from the future hunts down the soldier, and both the soldier and the chubby man have to fight to save the world. Yes. Capitan Quito is a superhero short story about the world's first cyborg who happens to be a dwarf. It's also available on Amazon along with The Swordsman and the Philosopher. The Barber's Daughter is a love story about a barber whose incel customer falls in love with his daughter, but the barber is hesitant to let the incel date his daughter because he considers his customer too ugly to date his daughter, but the story may pull at your heartstrings and at the barbers towards the end. So if you like Blade Runner, please consider getting Phantom Zero, my novel. Yes. And The Swordsman and the Philosopher, now available on Amazon. Yes, and please stay tuned to my next review. And if you like this video, please click like, please subscribe, and please comment what you thought, positive, negative, in between. Which version of Blade Runner do you like the best? Put it in the comments below. And have you watched the original theatrical of Blade Runner? If not, watch it and put a comment below after you've seen it. Yes, let me know what you think. Hope to see you soon. God bless you all, and Jesus Christ loves you. Yes.